Into it, we can just talk a little bit about, what it means to be a catcher. Not a glamorous position. There are going to be times where you get hit, and I think the first thing is that making sure that your kid is safe is, at the utmost highest priority. The tendency is when balls get hit at you to turn your head. That's when you can get hit. I mean, your protective gear is all in front of you. So I know, we use at the college level like a skull cap and mask, but I did use a hockey mask growing up. And there were balls that I would turn my head that had a protective gear, whereas the skull cap, doesn't have that. The only reason why I don't like using the hockey mask is that it's really heavy on your head. And the skull cap and mask, it's really light. It's just more comfortable, particularly when you're catching for long periods of time. Any questions on equipment or this side or the other before we get kind of into the mechanics? All right. So
I've seen kids. I saw this one kid had like a forearm guard.
Yeah.
Is that new? Is that new technology lately?
We'll kind of get into blocking, but you'll see that some kids they block right here, and then their forearms are white, flush. The best way to do that is to do it with good form, and we'll talk about it. It's more, out here and being big with it. I did when I was growing up wear kind of those elongated kind of wristbands, and just kind of, I had shorter arms, and they covered a large part of my forearms. It's nice. I don't think it's, it can be restrictive on your movements. So, but safety, growing up, you can't play hurt, and it's not fun if you're always getting banged up. So, yeah, I definitely encourage it. If nothing else, it makes you feel better.
The biggest challenge we have with equipment is the one size fits all equipment. We have one set of crappy catcher's gear.
Yeah, those are.
And then you get the one kid who's this big, and then another kid who's 2.5 feet tall.
I mean, that's really bad. I remember I played a season up in Canada, and I didn't bring any of my gear, and the only stuff they had was just really short gear, and because they were so short, the knee kind of placements were almost my lower shins. So whenever I went down for a block or on my knees, I was always getting cut up. It's not fun.
What's the take on the pads?
The knee savers? I think they make you lazy. I think that's what it comes down to. When we talk about stance and where you're supposed to set up, really they put you in a bad position. They kind of hike you up a little bit, and you develop some bad habits. But that being said, all throughout high school I had them, and here you can't wear them. They're just not allowed. It's no good.
Is that team rule or
It's a team rule, but very rarely do you see catchers with knee savers. It's one of those things that catching you to the muscles required to catch are so specific to this position. It's really the only way you really develop them is through catching. Because the weightlifting stuff that you can do, you need to be a little bit older for it. You really can't get the most out of it until you're doing a little bit more weight. You can really hurt yourself doing squats or some of the knee raises. Really, the best way to get yourself prepared for it is just to do it over and over the correct way. I believe that knee savers don't do that. I wish that I played more growing up without them. But I had a high school team, and then a summer team, and then another team that I would just kind of bounce around, and that's a lot of innings. And my knees are shot now. They're bad. We're on a downward spiral for sure. Okay, so we'll just kind of get into, what we have listed is, on those sheets, it's stances, receiving, and blocking. So we'll talk about those three, and then some drills we have for receiving and blocking. So, it all starts with the signal giving, right? So we start off by giving a sign to our pitcher, and we say that, okay, get on the balls of your feet. So your heels are off the ground, you're proud with your chest, your glove hand is shielding the third base coach, and your throwing arm is tucked into as close as you can to your body as possible. What we do see on it from time to time is a catcher who has it up too high or maybe too out or too low. Too high, it's obvious you can see the sign. Too low, you you can either see it below or it casts a shadow underneath. And I know it could be a little bit too specific, but I will tell you that it's been done to me before. It's true. As we continue on, everything, you know, from the college level on, it is an absolute war to get an edge, and it starts with the pitches. And one thing, you know, it sounds trivial and silly, but it is true. The shadows do show a sign, and the best way you can protect yourself from that is getting as deep as you can. So that developing that skill is paramount. So once we've given the signal, we then transition to two different stances, whether there's a man on or when there's a man not on base. The reason why there's a difference is that when there's a man on, we really have to make sure that the ball stays in front of us and we're able to defend a stolen base. When there's no man on, those two issues are not a problem, so we can get a little bit more comfortable and relaxed in our position. So we usually say, you get your heels on the ground and get to your spot, okay, and then get your glove right around knee level. So it can really look in a couple different ways. You know, I think if you look across the major leagues, you see a bunch of weird stuff with maybe like a knee down. We don't teach that because I think you're exposed to an open pitch. I like just to kind of get knees down position where I'm comfortable. I can sit here all day if I wanted to, and then my glove's just right out in front. Okay? When we talk about how we should be giving our target, what you should be out is with no man on, a little bit of flexion in your elbow, and then right in between your knees and eyes is where your glove's going to be. I always like to teach this position as opposed to this. The reason why I think so is, and we'll get into receiving, it's much easier to go from here to here as opposed to here to there. It's my opinion, and that's, I think a lot of people share it. They're not doubting that there could be someone who feels better going from here to there. So really, what position your glove is how it's indicative of what's easier for you to go from here to there or from there to here. I think setting up like this on the outside portion is very silly because you're catching every pitch like that. But you know, I'm not going to take it away from anyone who wants to feel good going from kind of a vertical to a horizontal. Okay, so I guess the other thing I want to talk about before we get into man on is if we stay in this position for the whole wind-up and pitch, you're going to get stiff, particularly over a long period of time. So when the pitcher he usually takes his eyes off when he gets into his leg lift, that's when I say we give it a rest. What a rest looks like is either a squeeze of the glove, maybe a hand down, wrist down, something to just ease the tension of our wrist. Because when we're receiving the baseball, having a firm wrist is absolutely vital. You know, when we get into low receiving pitches, we want to be firm and out in front. We can't do that if we're out here waiting for the pitch forever, particularly over an inning game. So again, when the pitcher's in his leg lift, that's when we give it a little bit of a rest. Nothing drastic. I don't want the pitcher to be distracted from what we're doing, but maybe a squeeze of the glove, maybe a drop down. Whatever it is, it's always rhythmic and it's always the same. So what I used to do is I was here and I gave a little drop down and then right back up. It should be timed, so he's in his leg lift, he's maybe looking out here, and then when he's coming back to release point, that's when he's locked back in on the glove. That's when you should return to your spot. So maybe it's like a 1/1001. That's when it comes back to the position. Again, it should be rhythmic. It should be something like right here. So you're working with pitcher, like Coach Pavelski was talking